Sorry for the disturbance. And she's a convener for drafting Model Public Health Bill 2008 with Kerala Law Commission on June 2008. She is the member, Program Advisory Committee for Science, Research and Invention in School for Technological Innovations, Srishti, Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment, Government of Kerala. She is also the member in the Committee for Drafting and Finalization of Kerala Public Health Bill 2012. She is a convener for drafting Model Bill for Emergency Medical Care by Kerala Law Commission, National Human Rights Commission on 2019. She had expertise in the fields of healthcare laws, IPR, and public law. Professor Bismi Gopalakrishnan ma'am has authored 2 books and published several articles. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome her to deliver her lecture. Welcome, ma'am. You can unmute.
Yes. Respected Professor Dr. C. Chockalingam, Director of Legal Studies, Tamil Nadu. Most respected Honorable Professor Dr. Gauri Ramesh ma'am, Principal, Chennai Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College, Pudupakkam. I'm so happy to see you, ma'am, though virtually. And Mrs. Hepsia, Assistant Professor. So basically, I think you had a very great inaugural function, and Gauri Ramesh ma'am told that this FDP is being attended by law faculties across India, and I'm so fortunate to be a part of this FDP. And once again, I thank you, ma'am, for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this FDP program. And I'll just share the screen with my screen. And the topic that I'm going to interact with you is the reflections on how to teach administrative law. So, can you see the screen? Can anyone respond? Is it visible?
No, ma'am, that your launch meeting only is responding. So you can open your.
Okay. Just
you can this came out of the share. Stop the screen sharing.
Okay.
Now you can open your PowerPoint. Then you can share the screen. It will show that you can click that PowerPoint and share.
Is it visible? No?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So now it's coming something, but it is not coming to us. Only your PPT 2020 folder is only we are able to see. So you can open that, open the main PowerPoint. Now you can share it.
ஷாம் உங்ககிட்ட இருந்த ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க, வச்சிருக்கீங்களா? Okay.
XT ma'am, I guess you are on mute and you're speaking something.
Ma'am, you just open the PPT and click the share screen. You can see the PPT then.
Oh, just a minute.
Yeah. I think she got disconnected.
Yes, ma'am. She's not on.
பெப்சி நீங்க அவங்களுக்கு ஃபோன் பண்ணி அவங்களுக்கு அந்த இதை ஷேர் பண்ண சொல்லிட்டீங்கன்னா நம்ம கூட இங்க ஷேர் பண்ணிக்கலாம்.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
ஆமா. மேடம் வந்திருக்காங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன்ல.
Yes, ma'am. Bismi ma'am has joined, sir. You have to make her co-host.
1 minute. Already அவங்க co-host தான் இருப்பாங்க.
இல்ல சார், இப்ப டிஸ்கனெக்ட் ஆகி போனதுனால திருப்பி போறேன்.
Ma'am, Bismi ma'am, I made you as a co-host now, so you can unmute yourself and show your video.
Share. Is it visible now?
Ma'am, before you open the folder, open the PPT and then share the screen, ma'am.
It was not possible for me, ma'am. Is it visible now?
No, it's not visible, ma'am. No, it's not visible.
Okay.
Can you send it to our email ID, ma'am, now? Maybe I'll share it from our end.
Already send it, I've already sent the mail to you. I'll just one more time, I'll just redo it.
Okay, ma'am.
At the launch meeting. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Visible.
Thank you. So I was just telling the topic for interaction is reflections on administrative law. So basically, we all start with initial hiccups. I had an initial hiccup right during this program also, when I was just launching my slides. The very same hiccups was there as a teacher and as a student of administrative law. All of us have initial hiccups. Now, what was the initial hiccups that I had as a student? Now, when I was just preparing the slides, I was just remembering the days when I was doing my PG at Department of Law, University of Kerala. I was taught administrative law by Dr. N.K. Jayakumar, the former Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Kochi, and also by Dr. K.C. Sunny, who is currently the Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Kochi. The major portions, nearly 3 papers were being covered by Professor Dr. N.K. Jayakumar himself. And I still remember as students, we taking D. Smith judicial review, and the first page itself, judicial review, is prolific and sporadic. I was just wondering, what is this particular sentence? What is the meaning of this word? What is this prolific and what is this sporadic? And then when we just see Craig in administrative law, we were wondering why this particular person has given a lot of editions, and then and each edition, he hides something new in every edition. Why is it so? And to understand the newness, you have to go through that particular editions. And then what is this combination of constitution and administrative law? Why don't you have different consti and administrative law? You have constitution and administrative law case laws. And another thing, what is this particular public law? Well, we can understand what a private law is, but isn't it enough that you have administrative law and you have constitutional law? What is this intricacy of having this public law? And which one is it best, whether it is D. Smith or whether it is Craig or whether it is Wade? And for students like at that time, Wade was a little bit of comfortable for us because the language was somewhat easy, because D. Smith and Craig, we took more time to understand what is being written across. And a little bit of caring and compassion was given to us by Sathe and MPJ. So I was just recollecting all those days. And this particular sentence, to understand the meaning of the sentence, it took a couple of days to understand coming terms with all this. And we also had our own Galligan, and this book was sneaking there in one particular corner of our the administrative shelf. And we were wondering why Galligan was giving too much importance to discretion. So all these questions were pondering in our mind as students of administrative law. And to be very frank, these questions still remain in us, even though we are teachers, even though we are researchers, even though we are learners of administrative law, these questions still lingers in our mind. And I understood that at the beginning, I thought of, look, we will have to read Craig and we'll have to read D. Smith and then MP, Jane Sathe, whatever it is, and then we will end up at Thakur. And then we also understood that it was not only the textbooks, but it was also a plethora of case laws that was glaring at us. So the path was not easy. It was a little bit of difficulty because we could see convergence of many disciplines within administrative law also. We could find human rights. We could find constitutional law. We could find interdisciplinary subjects like social science and even science to a certain extent coming into our forefront. And when we were learning about law relating to real estate and the multi-storied building, we even could find that we were transforming into architecture. So all these subjects coming into one particular area. So as a student, I told you I started with a hiccup. I'll share it with you. The first seminar that my professor, Dr. N.K. Jayakumar sir, gave me, I still remember, it was in 1997. My first seminar during the PG paper, Administrative Law, he gave me a very simple topic, Article 32 and 226. As teachers of law, you will understand that that's a very simple topic, comparing Article 32 and 226. What is the difference between 32 and 226? It was not at all a difficult topic. My dear friends, do you know what I did? I just went into an area which is very complicated. I went into the writ jurisdiction. 32, I began to unfold all the writs. I began to narrate the writs one by one, then 226, everything. My professor listened to me very patiently. And afterwards, once seminar was over, he told me, well, very good, but you have not covered your seminar till now. I was just wondering, why, sir? Why? What? I've narrated all this. I've narrated the entire writs, the jurisdiction, everything I've narrated. What did I leave? You left the core concept. What was that, sir? He told me, what is the core difference between 32 and 226? It's the other authorities. When did you mention this other authorities, and when did you mention the legal right? Did you explain what a legal right is? Why Article 226 is a little more? It contained little more. Did you mention that? No. Sir simply told, redo your seminar. So that was the first initial interface of me with administrative law. Well, I went back. I took MP Jain and DD Basu, and once again I redrafted my seminar. And this time I never wandered here and there into the writ or jurisdiction, but I just analyzed the basic difference between 32 and 226. Till now, I remember this seminar because what my teacher taught me by that simple exercise was that when you are dealing with administrative law, you have to be very sure with the concepts. Whether it is a simple difference between when you compare Article 32 or 226, or when you're dealing with natural justice principle, or when you're tackling the legitimate expectation or doctrine of proportionality, you have to be very, very sure about the concepts. This is what he taught me, and he used to teach the entire lot of his students who were his disciplines. So be very sure of the concept. He also taught me another piece of advice that you cannot learn the entire administrative law during your student life. It is just a start. If we have the concept in your mind, if we have that concept very ready, very clearly in your mind, you can read. You have to inspire your students. You have to challenge the students to read more. That is what you have to inculcate in a student. When you make the concepts thorough, when you find that the students are well versed in concept, they will be motivated. They will be taken into the interesting journey of reading, and then they will just find out their own answers to the questions that they will face. So once I bid goodbye to my student life, I realized another thing, that there is never a bidding goodbye to student life, because every time, even this moment, we are a learner. We are never, I don't know when we will transform ourselves into a teacher, but we are always learners. My initial class was a bunch of very bright, very bright in sense. I don't, it's not intellectually bright. We can never brand our students as intellectually very sound, very high. No, every student is equal. Every student before us is one and the same. They have their own capacities. They have their own potentials. The only thing is that you have to tap their potentials. You have to just, you have to tap them, and you have to move them. You have to you have to guide them in the right manner. So many times, we see teachers branding students as, on the basis of rank, on the basis of marks. So personally, I think that is one of the most faulty thing that we should adopt, because every student before us, they're all human beings, and each one of them are blessed with potentials. So my first batch of students currently, all of them are senior teachers, senior level teachers. I remember Dr. Sandhya Ram. She's currently the associate professor of Salgorkar Law College. Her classmate Dr. Tony, he's currently the associate professor of Jindal. Then Dr. Sonia Kedar, she's the associate professor of Thrissur Government Law College. All those that was my first batch of students. And when I taught them, I understood that my students were really bored, they were confused, and they were really apathetic to me. And I very sadly realized that the class discussion was non-existent. The subject fascinated me, but it bored my students. And very, very sadly, I understood that the course that I was teaching them discretion, the third paper of administrative law in the PG level. I realized that the course simply did not prepare the students for the real world. And from there, I began to rethink the whole process. My first problem was that the thought that I was inheriting administrative law from my guru, who taught this paper for 30 long years, created a sort of nervousness in me. There was a lot of expectations, and I was actually harping upon that expectation more. And when I was concentrating on that expectation, there was a sort of uneasiness in me. Whether I will frustrate the expectations of the department, whether I will outshine, I can make my students understand all those feelings. It was inside my mind. So I took a decision that I'm just going to leave all those expectations, all those thinkings aside, and I'll just move ahead with my students. And there started my rethinking process, the rethinking of administrative law. My rethinking started with the question whether we need administrative law at all. Now, this is something which, from a teacher level, we should rethink. There are two levels in which we have to handle this particular administrative law, in the UG level and PG level. So in the PG level, and definitely there will be students who take this particular subject in a different manner. They will reframe this topic for PhD or their postdoc so that they'll be in tune with administrative law forever. So during the PG streams, you'll be confronting administrative law in 3 different modes. I'm just talking about 3 different modes in PG. 3 streams, there'll be more. First one, we will have streams of constitutional law and administrative law, where equally the papers of constitution and administrative law will be spread across. If it is a 2-year course, it will be equally spread across. I'll come to the 1 year little after this. We will have public law also, where you will have the same treatment given to constitutional law and administrative law. And we will have core administrative law. Now, if it's a 1-year course, what will happen? You will have everything crashed, fused into a sort of, a butter and jam process where you learn many things, but you learn nothing. That is that will be the process. Sometimes in 1-year stream, if it is public law or constitution and administrative law, we find that we teach administrative law. We just skip across the fundamentals of administrative law by 1 sentence. We assume that you have already studied this in your LLB days, so there is no point of revising all these fundamentals. And if at all, we will be magnanimous enough to share our slides to the students or maybe the course packs, and we will just go through it. You can refresh it. Because it's a 1 year, we will have very, very spare time to go through all the intricacies of the fundamentals. Now, as far as the other papers are concerned, we will deal with in detail judicial review of administrative action, but we can find ourselves not giving much importance to the discretionary aspects. Then maladministration, the service sector, service matters, everything, you find a little bit of the position is such that, since we don't have time, we find that we're giving much importance to judicial review of administrative action and discretion. Now, if it is a one-year course which gives importance to administrative law as a core, as the one and only paper, we can do more justice to administrative law, starting from the fundamentals to maladministration and the service laws and liability, everything. At least you can touch upon all these fundamental areas. Now, as far as the UG is concerned, it will be divided into 2 SEMs where you have to be very careful. They are very small kids or persons who have completed a degree. We have to make them understand. So the PG level and UG level teaching are different. In the UG, you have to make them understand certain core concepts. In PG level, you have to trigger the interest from these concepts. You have to make them question and rethink the concepts they have studied, critically review their concepts, and re-evaluate the concepts that they have studied, make them practicably very applicable in the current times. So the attitude towards both UG and PG teachings is somewhat different. Now, when you're trying to rethink the administrative law arena, we have to understand that as far as our UG students are concerned, their experience and intuitions about how the system works. For example, if it is a 5-year batch, they'll be studying administrative law maybe in the 3rd semester or 2nd semester. It depends upon the institution in which you are working. Very many times we can find that the legal language and constitution being tackled in the 1st sem, and then towards the 3rd sem, when they have a clear foundation of constitution, administrative law being brought into 4th. Whatever the situation is, we have to have an understanding that the students in front of us, their experience and intuitions about how the executive, or rather the administrative agency, work, make decisions is not that sound. Now, when we go for a PG level or in a PhD coursework level, we find that they have an understanding. Here again, the understanding at that time, it will be a biased understanding. That's a difference. Here, it will be a raw group of people glaring before you and expecting that you teach them what you are supposed to teach. So experience and intuitions about the judiciary, about the agencies, the executive, it may be very minimal. And the coherent step-by-step for example, the concepts like if you're going to teach remedies against administrative action, the liability of state in tort, liability in contract, governmental privileges in legal proceedings, maladministration, public enterprises, all these forms a core of administrative law. And in the UG level, we have to be very clear that you make the tiny tots understand these concepts very clearly. So, to make the students understand these core areas, we can decide the way that we can practice, whether it is a practice-oriented approach, whether it is a theoretical approach, whether it is a policy-oriented approach. For example, look, remedies against administrative action. You can go with the case laws only. If you are very fond of this particular procedural aspects, you can go with the case laws. Now, liability of state and tort. You can start the class by narrating a story. You can convert the case law into a story, and you can just give that story to the students. And you can say that you have listened to the story, and what will be the end of the story? What will you decide in this particular story? You can conceptually analyze the concept of liability, and why still you don't have a comprehensive law relating to liability of state and tort, and then why liability of state and tort, tortious liability and contractual liability is different, why it is treated differently. Then governmental privileges and legal proceedings. There again, you can get questions from the students. Are Baba, we have studied this in constitutional law. We have studied right to information. Why do you want to study again this particular aspect in this administrative law? You can say, you can take another stand. You can say that, look, this is right to information. It is very closely associated with the concept of open government. You can also introduce transparency, accountability, the principles of e-governance. So it depends whether you want to take whether you want to take a practical approach, whether you want to take a theoretical approach, whether you want to take a policy-oriented approach. It depends. It depends on what? That is a question. It's not that I must decide the approach. The approach must be decided by taking into confidence the stakeholders. And who are our stakeholders? First priority must be given to the students. We must have a rapport between our students. What do they expect from us? Then you can talk with the faculty who are actually handling this particular administrative law, or your colleagues in the department, or the law college in which you are working, and again the administrators also. The college may be run by maybe by a management, and so you can also talk with them if you really need to. So take into talk with the stakeholders, and then once you start this communication with students, the faculty, you will get a lot of information coming into your midst. Because when you take information, people like you taking informations. And because people love giving advice. And you have to be very careful. Just take what you need. Be very receptive to the advices. Take the advices that you need and fine-tune the approach that you really want. From my side, I will say, sometimes this one approach will never help us. It will always a combination of approaches that help us when we are teaching administrative law. And what do our students need? Our students, as far as the UG is concerned, whether this administrative law does this administrative law serve as a gateway to our students? Whether it is a foundational course to them, whether they are going to understand administrative law for the third and the fifth semester, fourth and the fifth semester, or third and the fourth semester, they appear for the examination, fine, they're going to forget it, or are they going to use it in their practices? So we have to make the students understand that they're not going to bid goodbye to administrative law after their exams, because you have to deal with administrative law, since administrative law is in the air. You cannot bid goodbye to administrative law at any point of time. So whether it is a foundational course or whether they want a real initial understanding of the realm of administrative law, or do they really want to make it a practice point of view? For example, they are going to concentrate only on service laws. They're going to concentrate on service laws. They're going to concentrate on regulatory agencies. If that is so, uh, how will we help those students? And whether they are coming before us in the postgraduate endeavors, there our task is a little bit more harder, because we have to teach them, we have to make sure their concepts are very right, give them clarity as far as the concepts is concerned, and enable them to rethink the concepts, criticize the concepts, reevaluate the concepts, and at times many of them will take their path into research and even as a faculty. So what do your students need? It is always good to have a first-hand understanding of your student. You can take a feedback from your students, and how many of them are interested in going to judiciary, how many of them are interested in research, how many of them are really interested into teaching. You can just have a understanding of this, though I'm sure nothing is going to remain as such. The changes and the tastes will always differ, and life will have a different destiny to many of the students. Like life had had its own destiny to us. So like that, it depends. So as far as the PG level underpinnings are concerned, I told you PG level teachings are more concentrated in the theoretical level. For example, how agencies are created. Now, what is the relation between the executive and the political branches? This approach, the theoretical approach, when you're talking about the relations between the agencies, or relations between the agencies and the court, the relation between the citizens and the courts, we also tend to give an emphasis to the judicial review, the remedies of judicial review, the maladministration concept, etc. Again, we also give importance to the procedural aspects. So we'll start definitely in a PG level, we'll start with the theoretical underpinnings of the approach. We'll start with what is the administrative state, the rise of administrative state. We'll take our students from the police state to the mercantile state, to the laissez-faire state, to the welfare state, and again to the fact that we don't have welfare state anymore. We'll make them rethink the whole process of whether we really have a welfare state, whether the welfare state notion is still the welfare state notion is causing aberrations on the constitution. And all these questions we will just introduce on our students. We will have a good interaction with the students, because that will normally be our first initial classes. We will also introduce the perspective of regulation into their minds. We will also talk about nationalism. We will talk about We'll also talk about denationalization. We'll talk about selling of the family silver. We'll talk about the neoliberal agenda that we are having. So all these theoretical ideologies will be there right in the first PG level class. Very many times we can find that the students will be wondering, why so much of theory? Are we listening to a political science class, or are we dealing with an administrative law class? But gradually, when we talk of nationalism, when we talk of nationalization, and we talk of the cases involved in that, when we talk of denationalism, when we talk of the Balco case, when we talk of the public interest litigation cases that are attached to that, when we talk of the VRS questions, when we talk of the rights of the workers, they gradually sail into the core realm of administrative law, and they will understand the importance of rise of administrative state into our midst. So at times we can find students baffled by these theories, especially when we teach them the red light theory, the green light theory, and the amber light theory. Sometimes they'll be wondering why this teacher, why we are talking about red and green and amber. But we make sure that it is just like, in a jurisprudence class, we try to drive into our students' head the tug of war between the talk between Hart and the discussions of Hart, and then how the Hart's theory was debated. It is just similar to that. So some students, sometimes they'll be baffled, they'll be very bored by the theories of administrative state, and sometimes the students will ask you, just like when we are teaching the privileges, they will ask, look, in the constitutional law paper, we have studied separation of powers. Then why are we just reminding, we have been retaught about separation of powers here also? So here arises the difficulty as far as an administrative law teacher is concerned, to delineate between the subjects that they've already covered, the topics that they've already covered, and then give them an entirely different perspective, an entirely different dimension. Take the students with you and make them understand that you are in a different terrain, different realm. You are approaching the subject through the substantial manner. You are approaching the substance through the procedural manner. You are seeing the topics through the theoretical level, and it's not that we can simply close over these materials. Whether it is governmental privileges, the concept of openness, which is intertwined in governmental privileges, transparency, accountability, and again, we can make the students understand how they are exercising these rights through right to information applications that they file across. And one of the most toughest area for me as far as a student was concerned was understanding the whole concept of services under the union and the state. That was a really tough job for me. And fortunately, I had a very good teacher. His name is Dr. Girishankar sir. He's currently the professor at Government Law College, Ernakulam. What he did was that he never taught us the provisions. Now I understood why he was very reluctant to teach us the provisions. What he did was that he gave us small projects. And one of the projects that he gave was dying in harness. He gave a topic, what is dying in harness? And you understand, you try to explain what dying in harness is, and the cases associated with dying in harness. You locate the dying in harness, the provision in the service laws, whether the Kerala service rules, KSR is concerned. Since I'm from Kerala state, definitely KSR is applicable to me. So what is the provision in the KSR? And the project didn't end there. Actually, it is not a project. When I make use of the term project, please don't compare it with the project that we submit as far as an LLM is concerned, or a PR, or for a coursework purpose is concerned. It's not that. It is just a typical class assignment. But he used to remold it as a project. And he also told that don't end your inquiry he used to use the term inquiry. Don't end your inquiry there. You go to government, the secretariat, that is the government secretariat, which is located here at Trivandrum. Go there and you take maybe from 1990 to 1995 or 1980 to 1990. Take that particular period and locate how many people were appointed in dying in harness. Look, that is the best method to make you understand the provisions which we really fail to by heart or to go through the case laws. Gradually, when you're doing this project, because we have very limited time, because we have to present it as a seminar paper also. So within the limited time, we will go through the provisions, the case laws attached to it, and then again we will also locate the provision in the KSR, and finally we will have a first-hand understanding of how this particular rule works. So this is something which I still follow, which has been taught by my teacher, but I follow as far as the hardcore areas are concerned. Because when we just step into the society, when you are in the office and you get the first-hand knowledge of how the rules are really working, you will never forget the working of the rules, and then the problems that that is being that is there subtly in these particular provisions. Maladministration and corruption, the same approach. The entire setup of CBI or CVC, how is it working? The case laws associated in it, maybe the decided case laws, and then were there any sensational cases? So that we'll be more interested in understanding the sensational cases and how the decision was being taken. So that is how you can drive into our students core issues where students preferably don't like to step into. And a major impediment to an approach is that learning theories, you have to provide a very coherent framework to the students. So again, if you're taking a procedural approach, if you're just harping upon a procedural approach to teach, you have to have a very clear clarity regarding the procedural requirements, the procedural questions, the procedural paradigms, the court's authority, then the statutory backings, how the agencies exercise their discretion, all this. So here, unknowingly, you shift into a mode where you give prominence to two portions of administrative law, that is judicial control of administrative action and remedies against administrative action. So once you have taken a little bit of exercise as far as the rethinking of administrative law is concerned, what are the challenges of teaching administrative law? I'll be very frank with you. I don't know whether Gauri Ramesh madam is here. When she was asking me to take was narrating the FDP program, and then she told me that you can take class on any topic you want, and I'll just share the topics. I was just looking at the topics. I told, okay, I'll take maybe IPR or constitutional law or human rights. Okay, no issues. I just looked at the list, almost all the topics are being covered. We had Gandhi sir was there. Then we have Ambrose sir is there. Vishwakumar sir is there. Vincent Radbudam sir is there. Almost all the topics are being covered. And I just said, where is administrative law? No, there was none for administrative law, and then that is why this. I just thought, okay, no issues. I'll just take administrative law because I've been dealing with administrative law as a student, and I also as a learner. I never use the word teacher, but that is why administrative law. Because I'm just saying this because administrative law was not my first option in this, even in this FDP. So this is one of the challenges of administrative law, because some sort, there is a sort of tag that is being given to administrative law that this is a little bit of difficult. Now, personally, I don't think it is difficult. For me, it's very interesting. So it is a hard paper because it has a lot of cases attached to it. And there are certain core areas which is very difficult to understand. So that is a perception that we have towards administrative law. So as teachers, we have to explode this myth. We have to make our students understand that this is a very easy subject. This is very handy. It is not hard at all, and it's very interesting. So that is why I told you an example. To learn the provisions of dyeing in harness from textbook, it will be very, very difficult. But when we go into an office, when we understand how this provision works, it will be very easy to understand that particular provision. So what are the teachers, what are the distinct challenges that administrative law poses to us, to the students, to the subject, and to the teachers? Now, the challenges administrative law poses to the students. The first is that many students, they will have a limited prior knowledge about the subject. Very often we find that experts, even in this FDP, we will have professors saying that learning is a process of building on existing knowledge. But this is a little bit of challenge when we teach administrative law or any other subjects also, because many students lack, especially in the UG classes, they lack experience with administrative agencies, especially the executive, and knowledge of how these agencies fit into our system of government. So you can respond to this in 3 ways. That is how usually I respond, because the title that I've given to this FDP is Reflections on Administrative Law. So our response, we can respond in 3 ways. First one, find out what prior knowledge your student do have. This is very important. Very many times we find teachers lamenting that we don't have time. We are into a semester system. We have just 5 months, roughly 5 months or 90 working days. In Kerala, it is 90 working days for one semester. Even for a UG or a PG classes, we have roughly about 4 to 5 months. And then, so we don't have time. So it's very difficult to get feedbacks from the students. But it is possible because we need to spend a little bit of time for that. I'll just tell you how. So first find out what prior knowledge our students do have. And secondly, how most efficiently, effectively, we can build upon this foundational knowledge. So if we have an understanding of what knowledge that our students do have, it is easy for us to build on that particular knowledge. And we can also employ a third approach, that is relate new learning to prior knowledge and to the current affairs. That is linking the knowledge to the current affairs. So the process is very simple. Understand your student, then how you can build up that particular knowledge, how you can enhance that particular knowledge, and how you can make use of that, how you can correlate that knowledge to the current affairs. So How can you find out what prior knowledge your student do have? Well, as teachers, we are experts in giving assignments. We are experts in asking questions to our students, but we must have an expertise in one more thing. Never give an assignment which the students, the students have a tendency of asking their seniors, talking with them, having a rapport with their seniors. So look, never duplicate, never give an assignment which triggers the students to duplicate what actually they know, and never assume that they know a lot. So before teaching administrative law, it is always easy to find out where the students are coming from. So normally during my initial PG classes, I used to give them an information sheets to the students. I'll also share one interesting episode with you. During the initial classes, I used to ask my students, my PG students, you just draw a picture of a house. Okay, just draw a picture of a house. Majority of the students, what will you do? Majority of the students, they use, they used to give a triangular shape. They used to draw a house with rectangular and a triangle. Okay, that is the typical house that we have. Then I'll ask them the question. Some students, they will think differently. They will have a multi-storied house, or they will also draw a flat instead of a house. So all these. So these different notions will come into your forefront. So drawing a house in a PG class, you may think it is funny, but it is a manner in which you can question the pre-existing knowledge that you have in your mind. When house comes, it is not something which is a triangle or a rectangular shape, but it does have a different shape. It may have an entirely different outlook. So you can help the student to question the pre-existing concepts that they have in their mind. So the information sheet normally that I give to my students is, for the PG students, is that I'll just ask them, have you learned administrative law during your UG classes? What all textbooks did you read? Did you read any articles? Did you go across any? Did you read any journals? Do you know any journals? So all these questions, preliminary questions, will be asked, and then questions like why do you really want to study administrative law? Then what is your concept about the current governance? All those, a little bit of questions that is from the current daily affairs will also be asked. So the information sheet becomes very handy because it gives you, in the PG class, it gives you an assessment as far as the journey the students have taken. And after nearly 15 years, I just dropped the exercise because I began to get answers which was not that answers which I expected. I was never getting textbooks, the names of the textbooks. The students were actually, struggling to give the names of the textbooks or journals. And then even though they could answer other questions in a very productive manner. So gradually, I stopped all those basic questions of the books or the journals, but I just remodulated my information sheet so that, I can just go ahead with analyzing the knowledge that they have acquired during their UG days. So as far as the UG students are concerned, you can do the same exercises, but apart from, you can just drop out the books or the journals, etc. But you can ask the straightforward questions relating to the executive, relating to their the contemporary take on the contemporary issues and knowledges. So, and one more thing that we can do is that how are we going to plan our lectures? It is always good to inform our students how we are going to plan our lectures. At least maybe a couple of lectures, 10 or 15, and be very transparent. What are the area that you are planning to cover, how you are going to cover, what resources that you are relying upon. You just give it in a very transparent manner so that they can come along with you. And figure out which is the most effective manner to supply knowledge to the students. Never consider administrative law as a remedial civics course. It is not so. Many of our students have the fundamental knowledge, especially in the PG classes, they have fundamental knowledge. So don't overload them with the knowledge they already have. So with the limited time available, how best can you make use of the time that you have in your hand? And for that, what you can do is that you can, there is no need of, in PG classes, there is no need of going after the foundational materials. You can give it in a single lecture or two, or you can share your YouTube link with the students. You can upload your lectures and you can share the YouTube link with the students. And you can say that you can listen to the foundational courses so that you can just refresh what you have studied in the UG classes. But in the UG classes, you have to start from the scratch itself, and you have to take time to make them understand what is administrative law and how it is different from the other streams of knowledge, why administrative law is important, and the basic core areas of administrative law, and make use of the resources, make use of the resources available. Now, earlier time, I remember my professor, Dr. K.C. Sanisa, he used to, as students, we were a bit lazy to go to the library and take the books. What he did was that to make us go to the library to take the books, what he used to give was, he used to give us small topics, small phrases, small topics. Maybe, for example, bias, rule, or legitimate expectations, proportionality, all those small terms he used to give. And he used to tell us, locate the books and articles which carry this particular phrase. So now it was 25 years before. Now if you ask the students, they will laugh at you. But at that time, it was very handy because at that time, the resources, we were having resources crunch, and then we had to go to the library. We never had e-resources like this. But now what we have to make our students understand is that we can share with the compendium of e-resources that is available. Make them understand the repositories of e-resources available and the treasure house of knowledge that these e-resources contain. And we can make make the students understand that these knowledge is available, resources are at your hand, even in this COVID time and in the post-COVID time, that is when we are just recovering from the hardships of COVID, until the libraries are open, until we are free, we can make use of these e-resources that is abundantly available. So we have to make the students acquainted with the e-resources. And we can also make them aware of the syllabuses, the treaties. We can give them course packs and the websites with basic information. And the third thing is that you can ask the students to share their viewpoint during the class throughout the semester. Well, the fact is that your students are better teachers than yourself. At times, what I've done is that certain very, very difficult topics, certain topics, it will be very difficult for us to understand, to communicate properly. Trust our students and make them take classes on that particular topic. You can find our students excelling in that particular area. So peer teaching approach can be informal, and it can be made use of. You can ask the students to make short presentations, and it is I found it very effective. Only thing is that you should have a understanding of that particular topic. The thing is that you must be very blank, and you must transfer the entire responsibility to the students. It is not so. You just give an opportunity. You just ask the student to present on that particular topic, and you can find that the student coming up with newer areas, new horizons, which we have never expected. So this is also a manner in which you can make the students get involved into the administrative law learning. And administrative law, as I told you, it is around us. It is invisible to most people precisely because it's so pervasive. And administrative law teachers can discuss current events to provide concrete, salient examples that many students have already learned about. This semester, I was talking to my 5th semester students. Rule of law. I was teaching them rule of law. So I just taught them what the rule of law is, and then I was just talking about the history. I was talking about the basic principles involved in rule of law, and I told them that this is something which is going to remain in your life forever, and you should not forget, and all that, all the natural things that we teachers try to talk in the class. I was just telling my students. And suddenly I just stopped. I was just wondering, look, let me ask my students, what is their take on rule of law? And I stopped for a bit and I asked them, look, what is your understanding about rule of law? And I just gave them 5 minutes. And I waited patiently, and many of them, one after the other, they began to talk. And they began to connect rule of law with the contemporary times. At that time, the incident of the UP incident was going on, where a girl was being raped, and then she was actually put on fire. So all those issues was going on. And the first student who talked, that student connected rule of law with the UP incident. And the second student, he connected rule of law with the Citizenship Amendment Act. Here, I was just wondering why was I teaching them all these history and all these basic principles? So look, this is something which we have to understand. Our students, if we just give them the required knowledge, and if we just trigger them to think, they will think. and they will very easily connect the contemporary topics with the concepts that you are trying to teach them. And sometimes after that particular rule of law incident, what I asked my student was that it's a class of 50 students. I asked them, okay, you just go refer any paper as per your choice, and then locate any incident which comes into your mind, which you can actually connect it with rule of law. They went back. Majority of them responded, and many of them wrote a sort of narrative on that particular news they found interested upon, and they connected it with rule of law. So this type of teaching, where you take your students along with you rather than the monologues that I'm currently doing. Look, actually, what I'm doing is a monologue. I'm just talking to this screen, interacting with the screen, and without taking much of your voice. So this is a teaching which we should never do in our administrative law classes. So try to trigger the interest in the students, so that, believe me, they will come with wonderful ideologies. So even if it is a constitutional law class, you can think of treasure hunts. And even if it's a constitutional law, you can even think of convening constituent assembly debates with your students. So that they can understand better Article 14 and 21, the deliberations of 14 and 21 and 19. So look, some students, they will have a very bad experience with administrative agencies. Many of the students, they would have approached the agency for a ration card or a passport, or they would have slapped with a sort of petty for overspeeding, whatever it is. They will have a prior bad experience. And the bad attitude sometimes may be a result of political view also. Now, this political view is very rampant when you face students of PG classes. The student may have a political view. They may have a view that there is too much of regulation in the country, especially when you're dealing with administrative law issues relating to Citizenship Amendment Act, UAPA. You can find difference of opinions. You may have pure administrative law opinions coming into a forefront. You will have political opinions also. Don't sideline the political viewpoint, because there may be some sort of correctness in their political view. Now, when you try to sideline the political view, what they will feel is that, just like the normal political scenario, we are trying to sideline it. It's not that. If you can mold the political view into the legal view, that is very fine. But especially in the controversial areas of UAP and Citizen Amendment Act, it's always better to take the opinions of the students so that they can understand how this law is working, how the discretionary power, how the fettering of discretion, how the confining of discretion is being undertaken, how POTA and TADA and UPA are different. So all these can be taken up in a class. And the only thing is that as teachers, there is a riddle that we have to be very careful about our academic freedom also. So, but these are topics which we have to handle, especially when we are dealing about discretion. Then again, arbitrariness. For example, VG Rao is a starting point, but the current vaccine policy is also a take in which you can dive into two issues. What exactly is arbitrariness? What is reasonableness? And again, how we can interfere in how judiciary tried to interfere in an area where it was asked not to interfere. For example, there is always a bar of not intervening in the policy matters. But judiciary, how very cleverly judiciary was intervening in this particular policy making area. So all these can be taken up so that the classes becomes very lively. Look, if we just go on teaching the case laws, the provision, the case laws and the concept and the case laws, it'll be very, very, very boring. But if we just take the students, along with you, and you picturize the students with the contemporary issue, you put the contemporary issue to them, make them understand the contemporary issue, and then from that contemporary issue try to understand the law that is hidden within the contemporary issue. That will be an interesting exercise for both the teacher and the student. So make sure that the bad attitude will never obstruct the class's atmosphere. Try to correct the bad attitude, but if it persists, as teacher, you know how to handle it. So you can correct it, or you can have a personal talk with the student so that you can ask him to rethink his already bad attitude towards administrative law. And as far as administrative law teaching is concerned, whether it is in the UG or PG, one important aspect that we come across is that executive is bad, the government is bad, they are not doing anything for the people. So make our students understand that this is not so. A government, right from the welfare state to the neoliberal state, whatever the concept of state is, it's not that simple. It has multifarious functions and tasks attached to it. And also make sure that you make sure the students understand that administrative law is incredibly very handy. And coming to the end portions, what are the challenges that relates to the subject? As Casey Davis has often stated, we always study administrative law through the eyes of judges. And with layers of statutes, regulations, and executive branch materials, and additional sources on how the courts go on controlling, sometimes the students can feel disoriented. So when we deal with delegated legislation, natural justice, discretion, liability, rather than bombarding the students with a lot of cases and maybe starting from 1950s to 2021, have just the prime cases, important cases, the concept well explained, that too in a UG class, go for picture formats, because pictures describing concepts pictorically will make the students understand the concept a bit more. So pictorial descriptions are often very good, especially when you teach discretion. If we have a table drawn across the board, as far as the different types of discretions are concerned and the control mechanisms, and one important case law as far as the discretionary controls are concerned, it will be very easy for the students in the UG level, not talking for the PG level. So delegated legislation, natural justice, discretion and liability, the core concepts explained in a very simple language, basically pictorially, and then a selected number of cases, important case laws, so that your students will always remember. I'll tell you, when I was facing my interview at Mahatma Gandhi University for professorship, the question that I had was from Gandhi sir was, what is rule of law? I just looked at Gandhi sir, sir, what rule of law? You're asking this question again, because I was thinking that, Gandhi sir would ask me like, what is right to health, or because that is my specialization. And then maybe of that questions of a higher level, but he was asking what is rule of law and what are the basic principles of rule of law and what is French administrative law. So make sure that tell your students that this is not going to go from you. You're going to face it even in your interview when you're just going for a professorship or a senior professorship. So the case law approach is sometimes, it will be problematic for the students, and especially if you just consider administrative law as if it is a breakfast cereal, then you just give it the statute in the first in the top list, and then maybe in the case law in a bit down, so that the students they will be familiar with the case laws if we just make the student understand. I'm talking about UG students. The simple cases in a narrative style. As far as the PG is concerned, you can go for the important case laws. So, and make sure that they understand the judicial trend as far as the cases are concerned. So in the PG level, we are going to concentrate on the core concepts and the core cases. A thorough understanding of the core cases and core concepts, how the judiciary developed those particular core concepts through the core cases, especially you can also spice up these bread and butter topics by adding cutting edge issues and distinctive assignments. I remember when I was a student, one of my friends was given a topic. It was not about Annus Minnick, but it was how the impact of Annus Minnick on Indian judicial system. My dear friends, teaching Annus Minnick itself is a task for administrative law teachers even now. And then the impact of Annus Minnick right from 1960s to maybe 2021, it will be really a tough job for student. But if you make the students understand the relevance of Annus Minnick and how Annus Minnick has created ripples in our administrative law, definitely the students will be forced to go and take the cases and come out with a brilliant assignment, which you can always cherish of. And depending upon the students' preferences, you can boost the students by exploring several topics. Maybe immigration laws, it is one area in which you can ask the students, you can teach the students core areas of administrative law, judicial review of policy making. Maybe you can say that even though there is a brand or a tag that judicial review is not possible in the policy making, there are instances in which judiciary has intervened, especially in education, especially in health matters, especially in emergency situations. They have intruded into this particular policy making, identified those cases. Because for the students, it will be very easy. It will be interesting also because they are trying to question all set pattern that judicial review is not, it is not there in the policy making aspects. And again, law relating to multi-storied apartments. That is also a perfect area in which you can give assignments so that the students understand the intricacies of administrative law. What is a notice? What is a recent decision? And then what is the law relating to multi-storied apartments? How do you deal with wetlands even in that issue? All those, when does the local body give licenses? What is the regulatory role of local bodies? All those issues are connected in this particular multi-storied apartment. So you can select topics like that, and you can make students acquainted with these core concepts unknowingly. When they finalize their whole exercise, they will understand, oh yes, we were just dealing with this particular topic in administrative law. Even regulatory approvals, the regulatory innovations, current regulatory innovations in IT law, the OTT platform, everything can be taught in our administrative law classes, especially the regulatory perceptions of the executive branch can be covered. So when a market-oriented approach is being introduced in the administrative law classes, it might intrigue many of our students. And even we can take international examples, because it is mandatory that we have a touch of all the international textbooks also, international authors also. So we can make the students answer questions like how this 9/11 terrorist attack was being dealt with, how is the BP Gulf oil spill was being dealt with. All these questions can also be introduced. So through this, the coordination among the center, the state, and the local government, they can also be brought into forefront. The students can also be given examples of how the executive deals with air, water pollution, the health, and the education, so that they can have the real understanding of administrative law in practice. And one more thing, for example, when we make the students understand, look, the control of nuclear power plant is different from how you control the local education. The regulatory role played by the executive in both these are different. There the student will be fascinated to think why this difference. So again, land use. Land use is also another area where you can discuss with your students the exploitations and the loopholes of the regulatory law that is available in our contemporary times. So there are ideas to spice up your class and make use of those ideas, so that the students will never consider administrative law as a very boring subject. And another thing is that the students who are very allergic to statutes, some students are very allergic to statutes, and some students, they are very allergic to case laws also. So to those students, the best method is that you can give a statute, for example, Essential Commodities Act. You can ask the student, just tell us, just narrate how the words where, how discretionary power is there in this particular Essential Commodities Act. How price is being fixed. Does the executive exercise discretionary powers? If so, how? Again, how the word may, how the word shall is being used in different statutes. Now, this gives the students, rather than asking them to go and take the IT Act or go and take the Essential Commodities Act, you can very cleverly and cunningly give a very small phrase, and then you can ask the students to make us understand, teach us what exactly is written in the statute. So the responses, as far as the responses are concerned, the students make clear to the students that you may use it for your practice life, or you may use it for your academic life. Whatever it is, you have to have a clear understanding of the basic areas. And then again, you also have to organize, you have to focus the students and what this particular administrative law, the prior areas of administrative law, and also you have to have a close analysis of the statute, regulations, and the similar materials. So the fact is that agencies are like snowflakes, and no two exactly are the same. So make them understand that this is not. This is the plus point of administrative law, where different agencies functions in a different manner, and you can also you can make them understand the hierarchy of the existing situations. You can make use of the tables like this in the slides where you are interacting with the students. You can make a couple of slides like this so that they can understand, the UG students can understand the hierarchy of the system. And after all, you will be bombarded with one single question: teacher, what is the exam pattern? Nowadays, I'm getting the question even from the PG students: teacher, on which area should we concentrate the more? And the UG students, they will ask, teacher, can you just tell the core points so that we can just stick on to that, we can study that? Well, it is sure for you to get irritated because you have covered all these topics very sincerely. You have dedicated your lecture hours trying to create an interest in the students. And then you get the question like, how will be our question paper like? What are the important questions that we are going to get? So leave it. This is the general nature of the students. And because as the administrative law, at times it resembles a CPC. It has certain constitutional law elements also to it. And then, so it is natural that the students will be very inquiring. They will have an inquiring mind and consider that they are very inquiring. And this is what that is left. When we teach and then we complete our teaching, we will find that I've been teaching, but to be very frank, I've been teaching administrative law from 1999 onwards. But this is what I feel. Whenever I leave my PG or UG SEM, I feel that I've not taught anything. I've always ended the semester with a nagging feeling of regret. And the next semester, I start the next semester as a raw new teacher. So this is what I feel. And I'm sure many of you will also have the same feeling. After all, there is no one right way to teach administrative law. And you're not a single one. And but the one advice that I will tell you is that, what is your strength? Harp upon that strength. If you have a good political background, political science background or a social science background, harp upon that. You'll be an expert in making the student understand the conceptual analysis of administrative law. Look, I don't have a lawyer background. So the whole concept of writ, I told you this, right from my student life, this area is a terror to me. So what I will do is that I'll just I'll take advices from my lawyer friends so that I'll be updated with this particular area. So research skill also, you have to develop research skill with the students, and you have to trace out the legal history and the regulatory history of the administrative law, and the research skill also counts. I told you the small exercise of reading the newspaper and writing the newspaper into the realm of administrative law can be enhanced into a research synopsis and further into a PhD proposal also. So the collaboration also, you need, you make the students understand that business regulation, food and drugs law, health law, and property law is there as a foundation of administrative law. Then it is also has an interdisciplinary mode where when you're dealing with greenhouse gases, you can find science also stepping into and being with you. And I'm just ending it. Administrative law, it is definitely it is a sprawling subject. You can teach many topics in one umbrella from different angles, and it is just like a puzzle piece with borders and content that can largely be determined by the individual teachers. So be very careful when you fix the borders. And every topic dovetails with virtually the other topic. As I told you, constitution, human rights, then the food, the health law, the business law, the regulatory aspect. So every topic dovetails to the other topics. But be very sure that these are the 2 slides that I take from my dear student, Dr. Sandhya Ram, who is currently the Associate Professor of Salgorkar Law College. She was there to interact with my students at our department. And these are the 2 slides that she shared it with our students, and I felt it very interesting. Ultimately, we have to make our students open-minded, make them learn and unlearn, introduce perseverance, a quality of perseverance, and the legal aptitude and passion for teaching and learning. When your concepts are very clear, when you have clarity, you will have wings to fly, and your wings will be very strong. When I take pride in my first batch of students who passed out in 2000, I have a lot of students in different corners of Kerala and India as teachers, as judicial officers, and as professionals in other allied disciplines, whom I'm very proud of. So this is only because their roots were very strong. The concepts, they knew the concepts very clearly, with clarity. They had the courage to question the concepts, and they had, ultimately, they found that they have a strong wing to fly and achieve their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a wonderful presentation. It was eye captivating and we all enjoyed that too, for a dry subject like administrative law. And you brought color to it. There are very few questions. With your permission, can I go ahead, ma'am? There are 2 questions.
Yes.
Could you suggest areas where empirical research can be introduced in the teaching of administrative law?
Anyone. There is no constraints, because as I told you, the examples that I gave you, immigration, okay, multi-story apartments, discretion, even to a certain extent, delegated legislation, you can go for an empirical study. There is no restrictions as far as empirical study is concerned.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is, how was administrative law taught abroad in reputed law schools like Harvard, Yale, etc.?
Now you can just Google out and find out. For example, the professors, what they do is that, especially in Stanford, what they do is that they give a clarity as far as what they are going to teach. If you just visit the websites of each of the professors, you can find, this is the course that I'm teaching. This is a paper that I'm teaching as far as the administrative law is concerned. And then the detailed explanations as far as the course content is concerned. Then the materials, accessible materials of that particular course content. The slides and the materials will already be shared to the students. And the students, they read the materials, they read the lecture notes, the slides, all the concerned, the relevant materials, and they come to the class, they start discussion from that particular point. Here, we do the reverse. Even if we share the slides, even if we share the materials, at times we come to the class, did you go through the slides? No, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a doubt. What is it? The doubt will be that, the rudimentary point in which, you have to go over once again, you have to go and you have to explain the entire slides. But that is the first difference that I've seen as far as Harvard and Stanford is concerned. It's open, it is available. And from that point, you start questioning the concepts that you have studied. And maybe they go for a flip mode also. But the point that we must understand is that already whatever that has been given across, it has been understood. And the questioning starts from that basic understanding.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
With this, I request our dear principal to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Hepsi. Good evening to one and all present here. And at the outset, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our dear resource person, Professor Bismi Gopalakrishnan, for such a lively lecture on reflections on teaching administrative law. So, ma'am, you started the slides with hiccups. You had hiccups regarding the technical issue, but then there was no stopping after that, ma'am. It was just awesome, flawless presentation. And after listening to your wonderful session, I'm sure that your students are really, really blessed to have such a teacher like you, ma'am. Definitely our participants will be taking home with them the nuances of teaching administrative law in such a vibrant manner. And your slides were really eye-catching, ma'am. I should definitely a special mention to your slides. And our college will be more than happy to have much more such enriching sessions from you in future, ma'am. And as the saying goes, well begun is half done. We have commenced this FDP program with sessions by two great academicians. And I'm sure that this FDP will go on to be a great success. And the participants who are the stakeholders here will be thoroughly benefited. Thank you once again, ma'am, and thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
One lecture from the beginning till the end with a smiling face, ma'am. First time I'm seeing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm leaving. I'm signing off, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am.
We kindly request the participants to fill the feedback form.
Post பண்ணிட்டீங்களாமா?
Yes, ma'am. Participants may fill the feedback form and leave the room. The Zoom link for tomorrow with the other details will be shared in the Telegram group. The everyday flyers will be shared at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gomati. I think one of the participants sent a message. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Shyam sir, it is going live still.
Record stop பண்ணிடுங்க.